On the 24th of August 1941, a German submarine left its base at La Pallice in France, out on its first war patrol into the Atlantic. Admiral Karl Dönitz had ordered the U-570 plus 15 other U-boats to head for an area south of Iceland and attack a large concentration of Allied merchant ships the German naval codebreakers were tracking. U-570 was a Type 7C U-boat, a workhorse of the German U-boat service, and had been commissioned on the 15th of May 1941. She displaced 871 tons submerged, was just over 220 feet in length, and had a range of 8,500 miles. Her crew numbered 48 men, under the command of Kapitänleutnant Hans Joachim Ramlow. The problem was the relative inexperience of the commander and most of his crew. Ramlow was on his first U-boat war patrol. He had transferred from the Naval Gunnery and Coastal Defence Branch. Apart from some training time on the submarine U-58, he had no U-boat experience. Likewise, the first watch officer, the boat's second in command, came from the destroyer branch and had only a few months on U-boats. And the second watch officer, the third in command, had only recently been commissioned. The only officer with U-boat experience was the engineering officer, with one war patrol under his belt. Ramlow and his crew had conducted some working-up voyages aboard U-570 in the Baltic, and then in Norway, including firing torpedoes. By the 27th of August 1941, U-570 had been at sea for 4 days, and many of the inexperienced crew were incapacitated with severe seasickness. Specifically because of this problem, Ramlow had submerged U-570 in order to give the crew a rest from the constant motion of moving on the surface. U-570 had also suffered its first enemy attack that morning, when a Lockheed Hudson maritime bomber flying out of Iceland had found the U-boat on the surface and immediately launched an attack. The RAF No. 269 Squadron Hudson had dived in to deliver her load of depth charges as U-570 performed an emergency crash dive, but the depth charges had failed to release from the aircraft racks. After waiting for some time, Ramlow ordered his U-boat back to the surface, and the submarine emerged directly below a second Hudson, searching for it around 10:50 a.m. Ramlow had just clambered up the conning tower ladder to the bridge when he heard the plane and ordered another desperate crash dive. But he was too late. U-570's conning tower had not fully submerged when the Hudson successfully released 4 250-pound depth charges, one landing and detonating just 10 yards from the U-boat's hull. Ramlow evidently ordered his U-boat to surface soon after. The close detonation of the depth charges had caused extensive damage to the boat. All electrical power was out. Instruments were shattered. Water was entering the hull, and in the engine room, water had made contact with the battery cells, generating a choking cloud of smoke. The engine room crew had panicked and fled their posts, fearful of chlorine gas from the soaked batteries. Dead in the water due to the crew's inexperience on U-boats, Ramlow believed that if he didn't immediately surface, his crew would be killed by chlorine gas. Once the conning tower hatch was clear of the waters, 10 crew appeared, but the circling Hudson opened fire with machine guns at the German submarine, only ceasing fire when a white bedsheet was displayed as an ad hoc surrender flag, while 2 Hudsons circled the U-boat menacingly. After a radio call for assistance, 3 hours later a Catalina flying boat of No. 209 Squadron of the RAF from Reykjavik in Iceland arrived at the scene. In the meantime, Ramlow had contacted U-boat headquarters, sending his message in the clear and uncoded, and received orders to immediately destroy his Enigma machine, code books, radio, and secret papers from the skipper's safe, which was done. By now, the Royal Navy had issued orders for several vessels to race to the scene and capture the U-boat, a valuable war prize and full of intelligence extremely useful for the Allies. By early afternoon, the Hudsons had to break off due to low fuel, leaving only the Catalina circling the U-boat. Eventually, at 10 p.m., an Allied warship arrived in the form of the anti-submarine trawler HMT Northern Chief. the Catalina departing for Iceland after circling the stricken U-boat for an astounding 13 hours. The crew of the Northern Chief made no attempt to board the U-boat, the Germans staying aboard all night, though they indicated several times that they believed that their submarine was sinking. During the night, more Allied vessels arrived at the scene. The armed trawler HMT Kingston Agate, the destroyer HMS Burwell, and the Canadian destroyer HMCS Niagara and 2 anti-submarine whalers. However, during the night, a Northrop N3PB of number 330 Norwegian Squadron of the RAF arrived and attacked the U-boat and the trawler with small bombs, forcing the naval vessel to open fire at the RAF plane. Eventually, radio contact was established between HMS Burwell and the over-eager Norwegian airmen, and the plane backed off. The following morning, attempts were made to attach a tow line to the U-boat, but the Germans seemed uncooperative, and Captain Woods of HMS Burwell ordered a machine gun to fire a few warning shots across the submarine's bow, accidentally wounding 5 German crew who were on the casing. Eventually, a line was successfully attached to the submarine's bow by an officer and 3 men from Kingston Agate, who searched the U-boat. The German wounded were transferred to the trawler, and the rest of the U-boat men boarded the Canadian destroyer Niagara as prisoners of war. At dawn on the 29th of August 1941, U-570 arrived under tow in Iceland. She was beached, and then 2 days later a British submarine commander and a specialist team from the Navy and civilians arrived to survey the vessel and begin the process of making her seaworthy again. After cleaning her up inside and effecting some minor repairs, U-570 was made ready to sail to Britain. Masses of intelligence and engineering secrets had been found aboard, and escorted by Royal Navy destroyers, U-570 arrived safely at Barrow-in-Furness in Cumbria on the 3rd of October, filmed by news companies. During dry dock repairs to buckle plating, 2 G7E torpedoes were found lodged inside the submarine, and very careful cutting and defusing was required to recover them. One officer, Lieutenant Martin Johnson, received the George Medal for making the torpedoes safe. 3 of the RAF crewmen involved in capturing the U-boat received the Distinguished Flying Cross, and the captain of the trawler Kingston Agate the Distinguished Service Cross. Things didn't work out very well for some of the captured crew. Following extensive interrogation, the officers except Ramlow, who was kept separate, were transferred to the officers' camp at Grisdale Hall in Cumbria, which housed many U-boat and Luftwaffe officers. There they were tried by their fellow prisoners, the Court of Honor, including the U-boat ace Otto Kretschmer. Ramlow was tried in absentia. Ramlow and his second-in-command, Bernhard Berndt, were found guilty of cowardice. Berndt escaped from the camp, but was shot dead by local Home Guard. On the 5th of October 1941, U-570 became His Majesty's submarine Graph, and was very extensively tested at sea. After trials, HMS Graph became a combat submarine of the Royal Navy, actually firing at the damaged German submarine U-333, commanded by Peter Erich Kramer, another notable U-boat ace. But Kramer managed to avoid the 4 German torpedoes that were fired at him. After 3 war patrols, and failing to sink any enemy ships, HMS Graph became a training boat. Without a supply of spares, and spare batteries in particular, the Royal Navy could not keep this U-boat in service, and she was decommissioned on the 21st of June 1943 and subsequently used as a target. She sank in a gale whilst being towed to Scotland for scrapping. Some of the wreck remains in situ today near Saliago Beach, Islay in Scotland. This battle flag from U-570 is today on display at the Royal Air Force Museum, Hendon in London. It is an emotive trophy taken by the RAF and marks the absolutely extraordinary story of when a German submarine surrendered to a plane. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my video channel, Mark Felton Productions. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon, details in the description box below.